Good morning. Welcome to the Forex Pro Charts weekly analysis for the week beginning February the 20th, 2011. This week we are going to be looking at the Euro USD pair. Remember that if you subscribe to our services at www.forexprocharts.com, you can get the weekly analysis for 10 major currency pairs every week. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Euro. Okay, looking at the Euro on the monthly time period chart, we can see that the Euro is basically in a sideways trend at this point. It hit a high here, moved down. Actually, we tend to take the position that the Euro is in a downtrend from its high at this point, that was the beginning of a long-term reversal, and although we've seen some significant retracements, so you can see the lows are lower, the highs are lower on each subsequent. So actually, while the EMA basically shows flat, we think that this is overall a very long-term downtrend, although you can see that retracements have been significant. Price is midway in between the outer edges of our trading field, as signified by these solid black lines, and a little bit closer to the resistance monthly armpit than the support, but really too far away to have either of those areas be of any impact at this point. So we are just looking at price moving within this area without reaching one of the areas that we determine is an area with a significant probability of a long-term price reversal. Of course, the beauty of the Forex Pro Chart system is that it doesn't matter which way the long-term trend is going, you can trade either way. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weekly charts. Okay, on the weekly chart, you can see that weekly the Euro is in a downtrend, as we talked about a few minutes ago. Shows right here it's been kind of stabilized out a little bit over the last few weeks, and that's because of the significant retracement that we saw here, and we saw that also on the monthly chart. Taking a look at the upcoming zones that we have, the Euro's in a very good position for upcoming zones because as we look, we can see that any of the zones that price visits here in the near future will be the first revisit to the zone. If you watched our results video for the week of February 13th, that was just posted shortly before I began this video, and we discussed our results for last week, we had some discussion in there of first versus second revisits to the zone and the increased risk, and indeed we could see what impact that had and how important as an odds enhancer that first revisit, second revisit factor is. So looking at the weekly chart, it looks like all of these will be first revisits. We'll go ahead and confirm that, of course, on the daily charts. Looking here, we see that this next zone that price looks to be reaching the zone does have a 3-to-1 ratio, 1, 2, and 3, so it would be a suitable zone for trading. We'll look on the daily chart and see how price moved out of the zone. Looks like there was maybe a little bit of hesitation here on the weekly chart, so we'll be interested to see how that looks on the daily chart. Price then had moved down here, and we just believe we just put the zone on this chart this week. In fact, I'm sure we did. So price had started a new zone. Because it is a new zone, we do not yet have a 3-to-1 ratio, so we'll be watching that. If price moves all the way back up here, that would be 1, 2, would be very close to a 3-to-1 ratio, so we would probably be trading it. But it would be a fairly new zone. But price would have to go all the way up here and then come all the way back down here in order for us to be trading this zone this week. Should price move through this zone, then it will move up here. This looks to be a nice zone. We had price move strongly out. We see this pattern on the weekly chart. We also see the pattern on the weekly chart on this zone, which, as you know, is another is another good odds enhancers. We like to see that pattern on the weekly chart as well as the daily chart. But should price move through here, it will encounter this trend wall first, which it will have to work to get through, but then when it gets up to this zone, we see that we have a very low risk from our 60-minute armpit. We'll look at how price came out of this when price gets closer on the daily chart. But this looks like it would be a nice zone as well, and of course has obviously reached the 3-to-1 ratio because price moved all the way down to here, well over 3-to-1. Looking at this zone, should price for some reason reverse, move through this zone and down to this zone, which probably will not do this week, it's a little bit far, but when it does, we can see that this zone also has the drop base rally pattern on the weekly chart in addition to the daily. This also is well over a 3-to-1 ratio, and we'd have to look at the hourly chart, at the daily chart, to see exactly how big this risk is. Looks to be pretty decent risk, but we'll take a look at that as we come closer to trading that. So basically what we're looking for on the weekly chart, we see that we have on all of these zones that are upcoming, we have a pattern on the weekly chart, which is what we like to see, with the possible exception of this one because it is so new. And we're seeing, strong price action on the weekly chart. So let's go ahead and take a look at the daily chart and see how that follows through. Okay, here we are looking at the daily chart, and we're looking primarily on the daily chart at the zones that we'll be looking at this upcoming week. So as you can see here, the origination of this zone, we did have strong price. We did have, of course, the very clear pattern, but it was a very nice pattern on the daily chart as well as the weekly. And then when price moved out of the zone, it moved very strongly out of the zone and moved down to this area. Then it retraced fairly significantly before moving back down again. Now, some people will say, well, why didn't we have a daily zone here? Why didn't we have a zone here? The reason is that this was not really quite a 3-to-1 ratio, and it was so quick that we did not make that zone the first week. We thought that it was very likely that price would continue down. It did retrace, but then as you can see, and I'll be interested to look at this on the hourly chart to see what happened when price hit this area previously, because you can see that if the zone had been here, it would have ended right about here at the 60-minute armpit, and then right here price came down, and so price would have gone through that. So we did not place the zone here because it did not have the 3-to-1 ratio, and that's the importance of actually having a 3-to-1 ratio. Now, we did place this zone here without the 3-to-1 ratio, and the reason for that was because we had this zone here, and so it's our anticipation that price will be moving back up here and will make the 3-to-1 ratio. But as you notice, we discussed when we were looking at the weekly chart that this is not really a valid zone yet because we do not have the 3-to-1 ratio. So we saw price move out of this zone very strongly. Our risk is about 50 or 60 pips on this zone, so that's a moderate risk, but it is the first revisit to the zone. Now, we do not have the red painted candle, which is what we really would like to see. Right here, this is a red painted candle, this is a red painted candle. We always like to see those red painted candles coming out, makes it just that much stronger of an odds enhancer. But just because we don't have it doesn't mean we can't trade this trade. So if price moves up, you'll need to determine whether this risk is within your trading plan, and if it is, then as it's the first revisit to the zone, this should be a fairly good entry. But because we did see this little retracement here, and because we really just had barely a 3-to-1 ratio, I would be protecting my profits pretty aggressively on this particular zone, and be happy to get away with the 20 to 50 pip on the first and second portions. Actually, be happy with the 20 and if we could get the 50 without incurring any additional risk, I would, but this risk is fairly significant, so I would be moving my stop down to at least a more reasonable area just as soon as I hit that 20 pips. Let's go ahead and take a look at the hourly chart and see what our price action looked like this past week. Okay, looking at the hourly price action for the week, we're looking at where this zone formed. This is not my favorite kind of pattern at the origination of a zone on the 60-minute chart. Of course, price always lingers a little bit longer, but here price took really, this line indicates the beginning of, or well, actually this is the very end, the last bar for last week, so price began this week here with that bar. So you can see, price was here. Price kind of farted around here in this zone when it formed and then moved up. So price really kind of spent a lot of time in this zone. If we could get rid of all of this here and have price coming down here and then immediately moving up this way, we would like that a whole lot better. So that's just something that we're going to kind of try and keep in mind about this zone and the way that it originated. And it may impact our trade decisions. There were no trades on this pair this week. In fact, we only had a couple of pairs with trades, and we discussed those already in the results video. So we're looking for price to move up this coming week, to continue its move up, and hopefully we'll be able to take a trade as price moves into the resistance zone that we noted on the previous charts. Okay, for more information or to subscribe to our full analysis and charting services, you can go to www.forexprocharts.com. There we talk about our signature Forex Pro Charts trade setup using supply and demand levels, but refining supply and demand levels so that we very, very consistently obtain pips on our trades, even if it's just a few, say a 20 pip minimum. We have a very high percentage of wins to losses on that trade setup. And so if you're interested in learning more, you can go to our website. You can also subscribe to our analysis and trade alert services for a week for free. And we encourage you to do so and look forward to seeing you back again. Thanks a lot. We post these videos every Sunday on the YouTube. Y'all have a good week.